Hello and welcome, my name is Phil, and today we're going to be making blueberry Viking mead. So we just have a couple ingredients for you, some spring water, of course pure honey, and we have our yeast. These three ingredients are all you need to make mead or honey wine. However, we're going to add some blueberries to it. So I've got 3 pounds frozen blueberries that I let sit out. They can melt a little bit, chop them up a little bit, give them a little bit of straining, right? So that's gonna make it easier for those blueberries to get absorbed into our honey mead. So we're gonna be making 1 gallon today, okay? So I've already done the liberty of taking our yeast and rehydrating it, okay? You wanna take 1 packet of yeast. This is Lavlan D47, something like this. This is yeast that is made for white wines in particular. Do not use Fleischmann's yeast. Baking yeast, do not use that for this. It's gonna taste terrible. Why would a baking yeast taste good on alcohol? It doesn't, trust me. Plus it's gonna give you a lower alcohol content, which we're making mead. We wanna have high alcohol content. So this is gonna be designed for about 11 to 14%, which is the same strength as a regular wine. So use this packet. Now this is meant for a little bit more than 1 gallon, so you don't need to use the whole thing. Keep in the fridge when you're not using it. However, when you're ready to use it, before you even start brewing, let's take a couple precautions. The first, rehydrating your yeast. Putting it in a couple ounces of water, make sure that you have the temperature in it so it's not too hot, not too cold. We don't want to stun or kill off our yeast. So that's sitting there, ready for us whenever we're ready to put the yeast in, which is our last step. Also our honey. Honey is notoriously viscous, so I've taken this honey and I put it in a pot in some warm water, so it makes it much more easier to use. So this is a 2-pound thing of honey for 1 gallon. A lot of people say, hey, you really should be using 3 pounds for your honey, for the mead. It should be 3 cups or 3 pounds to 1 gallon. Yeah, okay, you can do that. When you add more honey, it makes it sweeter, okay? It's not gonna make it super duper alcoholic any more than it already is. I decided just to do 2, 1 because, hey, honey's expensive, and 2, I've got these awesome sweet and tart blueberries that I'm gonna be complementing the flavor with. Lastly, we have spring water. As I mentioned before, you don't wanna just use any random old water, okay? So, you probably don't have this at home. That is okay, unless you're quite a brewer, you can make it using something else. This is a 5-gallon fermenter, okay? It's food grade, has a little airlock hole, which we'll talk about. There's a temperature gauge on the side, you can pour, this thing is awesome. So if you make a trip to a home brewing shop, a couple things should be on your list. However, it's possible to make mead. I recommend small batch first. Don't automatically go to a 5-gallon batch. First of all, honey's expensive. If your first time, you might mess it up and you're out a lot of ingredients, a lot of money. Okay, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our blueberries. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, quite a few there. Again, this is like $5 worth of wild blueberries, okay? So 3 pounds. I've already mashed them up a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and pour all those bad boys in. So our mead is gonna have a blueberry taste to it, okay? It's not gonna be 100% blueberry, but you know, we'll see how it works out. Next, we're gonna go ahead and put our honey in here, okay? So our honey is clover honey, which I'm not so happy about. I wanted just regular honey. I don't want anything to distract from the pure honey taste. But you know, this is a bit more sophisticated than the Vikings used to do. I don't know if you know this, but look at how that's pouring. That's perfect, all because I went ahead and put it in some water first. And of course, you're gonna get a little bit of honey stuck in there, not a problem. All we gotta do at that point is open up our water. Again, this is, what is this, North Carolina pure spring water? The honey smells good too, right? Pour a little bit of that water in there, get a little bit of a swish, get everything in there, and away you go. Cool, so we're making 1 gallon of mead. Now already on our side here, we're probably already up to 1 gallon just with the honey and the fruit alone. However, we want a gallon product. So we're gonna go ahead and add an entire 1 gallon thing of water. Keep in mind, I did sanitize all of my equipment, everything we're putting in there. Now, back in the days of Vikings, they had a magic stick, and they used it to make mead all the time. They never washed the stick, it was not sanitized. They thought the stick was magic, it was making alcohol. When did we all like one of those, right? Not the case. There's wild yeast in the air, and that's what contributed to the mead. Right? So there's yeast all around us, but today we're not going to be relying on magic or anything like that. It's pretty well stirred in there. And as I mentioned before, our last step, which is going to be our yeast. Now this was hydrated for about 20 minutes, and we're going to put this whole thing in. Like I said, we don't need all of it because it's, you know, designed for more than 1 gallon, but what the heck, it can't hurt. So we pour our yeast on in there, right? Hopefully those guys are going to be pretty hungry. And what the yeast are going to do is they're going to attack all those sugars. They're gonna eat to their heart's content until their bellies are filled, and then they're going to convert it to CO2 and alcohol, which is what we like. And then the yeast, they take nap time, they go to the bottom, which is why we're gonna have to rack, okay? So you don't wanna leave these blueberries in here forever. You know, they might get moldy, we don't want them in our final product. So what we're gonna do in about a week to 10 days is we're gonna scoop out all these blueberries, get all of them out. We're gonna rack it so we get all that sediment, all that dead yeast out of the bottom, and we're gonna have a more clear mead, and then we're gonna set that aside for another 3 weeks. So in about a month, I'm gonna go ahead and take the first taste. So last step, thank you for hanging with me. We can take our lid, put it on. I like to put it on tight. Now it'll probably hang on tight anyway due to the CO2, but let's not take any chances. Last part is our airlock, which I have here. You can pick these up at Home Brew's Place pretty easy. They're only a couple bucks. Put a little bit of water in it. That goes there. And of course we've got our cap. There's a hole for it right in here. You want to make sure that's nice and snug. Put that bad boy in. There you have it. There's our mead. We're going to report back after a couple weeks and see where we stand. Thanks for watching. So now we've got our beautiful 1 gallon blueberry mead, and you know what, I don't know how this happened, but a blueberry got stuck in there. We don't want a blueberry sitting for the second half of the fermentation process. That would not be good for that. So we're gonna make sure that we grab those out, the skins, some of those. Again, they're gonna fall to the bottom. Not the biggest deal in the world, but for presentation's sake, we want it to look nice and clear. Now we're gonna take our airlock and put it back on. Again, we just sanitized it, and of course I'm having sanitized solution, right? Put it right up to the fill line. Now, I don't suggest just putting a cap on it and calling it a day. I mean, you really don't know if you're done with the fermentation process or not. You know, most likely you are not. And to avoid this exploding, which has happened to me because I bottled it too fast, we're gonna give it another 3 to 4 weeks before we're gonna, we can actually just snap a top on it, or we can do a second racking if I find out it's not as clear and we got a lot of sediment in the bottom. So we're gonna follow up once again in 1 month's time. All right, welcome back to our mead. So after about a month, I finally took the airlock off and I bottled my mead, okay? So 4 weeks. The reason we're waiting so long before we bottle it is because there's quite a fermentation period, much more longer than a beer. So if we have CO2 coming out and it's not ready yet and we put that cap on, we have a ticking time bomb on our hands. And I do not want another 1 gallon glass carboy getting busted in my shelf. It's happened before. Okay, so I had some extra left over from my 1 gallon thing. So this is our blueberry, never made before, never tried before. This is our mead. All right, so let's see how it looks. We're just gonna pour a little bit. What a beautiful, luscious color. Almost looks like a red wine, right? So we got our blueberries there, very clear. I did take an extra step to second rack it. That gets rid of any sort of sedimentation on the bottom. Just a little bit, there's some still in there. But mainly I want to get out those dead blueberry skins because that's really gonna freak you out if you think you're drinking a liquid and you get one of those things that's about a month old, right? It's not gonna hurt you, but you know, presentation's sake. So I love the color, let's give it a smell. Don't really smell the alcohol. Don't really smell much, maybe just a little bit of sourness or tartness. And this is our first sip of our blueberry mead after 1 month of preparation. Skål. Damn, is that good. That is tasty, not overpowering. I guess more blueberry than anything, not really a honey taste. And not very sweet either, it's more tartness. Don't really taste much alcohol at that. I think we should be hovering around 12-13%, so it's about as equal to a glass of wine, but really not smelling the alcohol, and this goes down really easy. I gotta say, this was a very successful blueberry mead. I don't know if it's gonna knock me on my butt. That's for later episodes to check out. But if you like the video, thanks for watching. I'm gonna sit back and enjoy my mead. Cheers.